あと出たか。出ていったいった。
あ、当たった
行きましたよ。鎌見せ所。おお。
見せどころ。おお、完成が良かったですね。
良かったですね。
もう僕の役目終わりました。
Shields up, Iron Breakers. Rookon here coming at you with another video, and today we're going to be talking about Monster Hunter World. Now, since my last video talking about Monster Hunter World, a lot of new information has surfaced, and yesterday we also had a Japanese live stream that showcased some new gameplay, and I figured this would be a good time to kind of update you guys on all the new things that I didn't mention on the previous video. So let's get started, shall we? Now, the very first thing that I would like to talk about, this was actually revealed shortly after my video went live, but you know, making a video just talking about this one topic didn't seem right, so I decided to wait until I had a lot more things to talk about. But the very first thing that I wanted to bring up is the fact that all 14 weapons that we know from the current iterations of Monster Hunter are going to be present in Monster Hunter World. Now, this is particularly important because the initial footage that we've seen from the press conferences actually almost made it seem like Monster Hunter was more of a single-player game, even though I never made that assumption in my video. That was kind of like the vibe that you would get, but that is not going to be the case. This is going to be full-on Monster Hunter. If anything, that is definitely one of the things that was shown in yesterday's live stream. It's going to be full-on Monster Hunter just like you know it, with obviously a couple of nuanced things, because it is a definitive evolution from the franchise. It is the most evolution we've seen in the franchise pretty much since ever, because all along throughout all of these Monster Hunters that we've had, we've seen, you know, a lot of stuff that kind of stayed the same, like the zone map separation, as well as a bunch of other features, the lower, kind of like lower tier graphical quality in the series. And, you know, I'm not saying this as a bad thing, because I don't mind the graphics in Monster Hunter, but I'm just saying this was like a definitive evolutionary leap in the franchise. So it's kind of okay if people are kind of like confused about, is this really the next thing? Is this going to be some kind of single player thing? Because Capcom has thrown a couple of curveball at us with stuff like Monster Hunter Stories and whatnot. So anyway, focusing back on the topic. 14 weapons, I said, and some of you guys, maybe you haven't played Monster Hunter since Freedom Unite, because as we know, a lot of Monster Hunter started on the PlayStation platform back in PlayStation 2, and most most of the PlayStation fans might have not migrated over to like the Nintendo consoles and whatnot, so they would have stopped at Freedom Unite 2. I know a lot of people that are this way. Paladin Leroy, I'm looking at you. So you are not going to know some of the new weapons unless you've been keeping up with what's happened with the other games. So let me tell you all of the weapons that you're going to be having. You're going to be having Sword and Shield, Long Sword, Great Sword, Hammer, Lance, Bow, Light Bowgun, Heavy Bowgun, Gun Lance, Insect Glaive, Charged Blade, Switch Axe, Dual Blades, and Hunting Horn. Now, I'm very curious about something that I want to see in the comments down below. What weapon are you considering playing once Monster Hunter World hits? Come on, I want to see it down below. I want to see all of the weapons and why. Why are you selecting that specific weapon? That is something that I'm really interested in. Because me, personally, I'm thinking about giving the Insect Glaive another shot, because with the new mounting mechanics and stuff, you guys know that I'm a sucker for mounting. I love aerial in Generations. So mounting is kind of like my thing. I like doing it. And so Insect Glaive, I'm going to give it another shot, particularly because in Double Cross, the Insect Glaive was actually separated from the Kinsect itself, which to some of you, this might be, you know, you guys might be like, what the hell is he talking about? Insects and glaives and what? If you're not familiar with the Insect Glaive, just trust me. There was a really annoying mechanic that involved you leveling up both a glaive and a Kinsect for every single glaive you crafted. And as you know, you have to craft multiple weapons in Monster Hunter. And the fact that you had to, you know, you had basically to upgrade two things constantly meant that the Insect Glaive always felt like it was more work than it was actually worth. But with the changes they did to Double Cross and some of those changes carrying over, like I believe the Kinsect is going to be separated in Monster Hunter World as well, that is something I'm willing to give it another shot. So we shall see if it works out or not. Another thing that I would like to mention when it comes to weapons. Now, as we all know, Monster Hunter Generations introduced something which was the Hunter Styles and Hunter Arts. And you guys might be wondering, so what's the deal? Are they going to be present in this game? Is that going to be a thing? Are they not going to be present? What's the deal with this? And long story short, no. You're not going to have hunter styles. You're not going to have hunter arts. Now, some of you might be like, oh my God, but it was so much fun. It was this, that. Like, I know that I'm feeling that way about Aerial because I'm like, dude, but Aerial switch axe, you know, so good. And it's like the idea here is they're doing, like I said, an evolution of the franchise, and it's like the hunter styles and hunter arts was like a gimmick that they introduced into Generations. And I don't say a gimmick in a negative way. I'm just saying like it was that entry in the series. That was what they were focusing on. So Generations and Double Cross, they get the hunter arts and the hunter styles and all this other stuff. And Worlds is not going to have that. However, what you are going to have is new moves on the weapons. So even if you're, say, a Sword and Shield veteran, most likely you will find out new attacks and new tactics that you can use with this specific weapon in Monster Hunter World. Specifically, you actually see one of the attacks in this Japanese presentation, which is the attack on a hammer, where the dude just kind of starts flipping repeatedly, which is completely insane. Like, he jumps and he just starts, you know, flipping forwards with the hammer, and you're doing like a pinwheel style attack, just constantly spinning. And I thought, that's insane. That looks so cool. And he eventually, I think at some point, he also mounts the monster because it counts as an aerial attack, because he was sliding down a slope or something, then he jumps up and he just starts spinning, and it's just like completely crazy. So I'm very curious to see what other crazy moves you can have with all the different weapons and stuff before I actually make my decision. But to start things off, I'm really thinking about giving the Insect Glaive another shot. But we will see. Now, this was an idea that I was thinking about as I saw that, because an interesting thing when you see that special hammer move is that you will notice that the person is either wearing some kind of a red cloak, and I'm not sure if that's one of those mantle things or something along that nature, or if that red cloak could be like maybe a specific piece of armor. And maybe, and this, just hear me out here, this is conjecture, this is speculation, this is something that I would like to see, has not been confirmed in any way, but wouldn't it be cool if different armor sets would give you different special attacks for your weapons? I think that'd be really cool. I don't know if that is a thing or not. That was just something that I came up with the top of my head as I was watching that live stream yesterday. Now, continuing onwards, another thing that is that we hadn't talked too much about was the map and whether or not the world was open world. I mean, I believe I specifically mentioned open world in my last video, and that was wrong. It is not open world, it is open areas. So basically you start your quest at the town or whatever, the hub, whatever we're going to call it eventually. And as you start your quest, that will decide which area you're going to go to. And once you get to that area, it is one area. It is a big area. There's no loading separations or anything like that, but it is one area that you have access to. So my dream of hunting a Rathalos from the forest all the way into the volcano, most likely not going to be a thing. Or if it is a thing, it is most likely going to be separated into multiple quests, like maybe you'll hunt the Rathalos in the forest, and maybe he'll get away, and then in the next quest, you'll go and fight him on the volcano or something. I would have really liked to see something like that, if you like going through the world and actually end up going to different zones in one single hunt. I think that would have been really cool, but ultimately that might also have made that one hunt really, really long, which I'm really not opposed to that. But anyway, so the map is still going to be separated by zones, but again, there are no loading screens. So if you looked at the map when it's shown during this live stream, this video, basically you will notice that there's numbered zones. That is mostly, I think, for the hunters to be able to communicate, oh, he's in zone 5, he's in zone 6, he's in this and that and the other, and probably for them to be able to attribute different behaviors to the monster depending on what zone he's in, and like maybe he'll do special attacks in a certain zone and whatnot. But basically the map is still segregated into zones. You just kind of transition between them seamlessly. This also means, because of that fact, you're not going to be able to transition out of a zone when you're in the middle of battle to like heal and sharpen and do that kind of stuff, which is why the game now has stealth, the stealth that we've seen both in bushes as well as using that stealth cloak, the ghillie mantle or whatever it's called. that stuff is important now to make sure that you're able to, you know, get some breathing room. Because previously in Monster Hunter, you could just like, oh, exit from Zone 1 to Zone 2 or whatever. Monster stays in Zone 1, I'm in Zone 2, I can heal, do whatever I want. This game, you're not going to be able to do that stuff. You're not going to be able to pull those stunts. So you're going to have to be able to, you know, stealth yourself, or also using potions, you'll be able to move. So you'll be able to kind of like be dodging around as you are healing and as you are consuming items and stuff like that. So that is pretty important, to be able to be more mobile and be able to hide yourself from the monster. Another thing that you will notice if you take a look at the UI is throughout the video you'll notice that there's like this quick radial menu that you will now have. I believe that you can still use the traditional way of like cycling through items as we've always done, using maybe L1 or something and then pressing square and circle if you're on PlayStation, or the corresponding buttons if you're on Xbox, and cycle through the items. But you're also able to use a radial menu to select the items that you want. So you'll have those two options. And another interesting thing about the UI is that the health and stamina gauge, they seem to auto-hide if you are not in combat. I thought that was cool because it makes, you know, for a little bit more cinematic experience. Personally, I love it when a UI starts minimizing itself and getting itself out of the way if I'm not in the middle of combat. I've always been a fan of that kind of stuff in pretty much any game that I play, so that I can enjoy the vistas and the beautiful graphics and the art and all that stuff that the developers have cooked up for us. It's always nice when that is an option for the UI to auto-hide, so I appreciate that a whole lot. Another difference in the UI, while we're on that particular topic, the sharpness gauge is now different. So the way the sharpness gauge used to work in Monster Hunter is basically you would see your sharpness, and then as you would hit the monster, it would say like, oh, your blade is lost sharpness or whatever, lost power. I don't remember off the top of my head. But, and when that happened, the color would immediately change. So it would go like from blue to green, green to yellow, yellow to red, so on and so forth. And now, instead of that, you have an actual gauge that will show you how much sharpness you have left on your weapon, which is a really good thing, because now you can decide, okay, maybe it's a good time to sharpen because a couple of more hits and my weapon's gonna break. You can actually plan ahead instead of being like mid-swing. Maybe you're preparing like the biggest friggin' combo that, you know, you're setting up your traps, doing all your things. You see that green or blue sharpness depending which weapon you're using, and then you hit the monster once and boom, your blade is dull. And that was very frustrating. So the fact that you can now have a better idea of how your sharpness is doing, that is very, very good. So that is a very, very welcome change. Another thing that you will see the character eventually do throughout this video is, as he's moving through the scenery, there are actually items that you can pick up on the go. So you don't even have to like stop to pick like honey or some other things. There are things that you will have to stop to pick up, like for instance, if you're carving up a monster or something, you can't just carve on the go, you have to stop. If you're mining a node, you still have to stop and mine. But like stuff like honey, or maybe picking a fruit off the ground or something along that nature, you can just like, as you're walking by, just collect it and not even stop moving. That, again, it's a good thing. It's a very minor thing, but it's a good thing. Now, those little insects that we see, the glowing little firefly-looking things that kind of guide the hunter throughout the hunt, there are a little bit more details on that. Those are scout flies, and basically they live in a cage at the hunter's belt. I think we've seen there's like a more detailed section of a video that shows that in the hunter, the little flies and stuff on his belt. And they live there, and basically as you traverse through the world, and as you traverse through an area, you're going to hunt a monster and stuff, you find footprints of the monster, you find maybe pieces of snot, you find tracks, you find marks, you find all these things. And as you find these things, you interact with them, and your scout flies start leveling up. And the more of these clues you find throughout the environment, and the more your scout flies level up, eventually they'll pick up the scent of the monster, and you no longer need paintballs, because your scout flies at that point will mark the monster permanently, and you'll be able to always track the monster in your map. Now, this is what is being said right now. However, I believe that there might be monsters whose gimmick will be to evade your flies, you know, you'll be able to evade the scout flies, because that would make sense. You know, maybe some monsters like some kind of a chameleon or something. Or maybe he burrows in the ground and your flies lose track of him or something. They lose his scent, they lose whatever. I think there eventually we'll see monsters where this stuff does not work 100% of the time. And I think that's a good thing. Because, you know, you'll then have to track the monster again, keeping up with the aspect of the hunt and all that stuff. Another thing that we now know a little bit more of is the Slinger. Slinger being the little crossbow thing that your hunter has on his hands, which consists essentially of a sling. That you will be able to shoot the grappling hook, as we've discussed previously. You'll be able to attach yourself to different points on the map. Only certain nodes. You can't just like fire off a grappling hook whenever you want. Grappling hook will also allow you to recover if you happen to misstep on a mount. You'll be able to recover by using your grappling hook, but the timing on that, I've been told, is pretty tight. On top of that, the Slinger is also used to throw things at the monster, like, you know, special fruits that maybe can poison him, stones that you pick up from the environment to draw his attention elsewhere, or maybe just shoot him in the face with something. There's even things, I believe, that you'll be able to stun the monster and even deal damage to it using the Slinger. So it's going to be a multi-purpose type of tool. And as I was wondering in my previous video, is it going to be something specific to the greatsword? It doesn't seem like that's the case. Everybody's going to have that tool regardless of the weapon that they're using. Wonder if you can actually use it to shoot off a insect. Wouldn't that be interesting? Moving on, we now also know the names of all the monsters that show up in this particular video. The yellow lizard-looking thing is a great Jagris. Obviously, the smaller ones then are the Jagrises. I don't know exactly what they'll be called, but I find it interesting that they're going with the Jaggi connotation instead of the drone connotation, which is what we would usually have in previous Monster Hunters. You would have like the Velociprey and the Velocidrome. Now you have you had the Jaggis in Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate and Monster Hunter Tri, and now you have the Jagris. And his little offspring, the Jagrises. That's whatever. The other monster, the pink-looking T-Rex with fur and wings and big-ass nostril-looking thing, that is the Andronath. Or Andronath. I don't know what the exact pronunciation is, but he is a beast. And that is his name. And the other monster, obviously, in the presentation is the Rathalos. Now, while we're talking on the monsters, it is a good time to talk about the monster food chain. Now, apparently, in this specific mission, this feels very much like a tutorial mission, by the way, but you're able to interact with these 3 different monsters, and every time they, like, encounter each other, they feel the need to assert their alpha dominance. So like throughout this video you'll see points where the Andronath attacks the great Jagris to show his dominance, and then later down the line you will see that the person playing actually lures the Andronath to the Rathalos, and the Rathalos himself starts beating on the Andronath because he is the alpha predator in that situation. So that means that there will be certain quests where you'll be able to exploit these things. You'll be able to get monsters to kind of attack each other, and as they attack each other, you can kill your target faster. You can make the hunt a whole lot easier. Now, while this is a very interesting thing, that they're actually able to get the monsters to attack each other, and there's all this improved AI to it, and there's, you know, the monsters feel more real with more attitude, so to speak. It's like, because it is a very primal thing. It's like a monster stating like, I'm the biggest, baddest monster in this place. At the same time, I'm left wondering, it's like, so is this something that we can just exploit to make certain hunts easier? I'm not exactly sure how I feel about this feature. Then again, I figure if they want certain hunts to be more challenging, they just won't put the bigger monsters in those hunts. So it's not like a big deal. It's just, I see this more as a fun little thing to explore and to dick around with than necessarily something that I would want to do, like say, okay, game wants me to hunt an Adrenath. To me, that's something that it's like, I want to hunt that Adrenath. I want to fight him one-on-one. I want to beat him up. I don't want other monsters to do my dirty work for me. I like the thrill of the hunt. I don't want to make these hunts easier, you know? I want to make these hunts challenging, and I want to make sure that I have fun and just smash the crap out of the Adrenath as hard as I possibly can. So hopefully those are, I mean, obviously those are going to be optional things, but hopefully there will also be quests where this is not a factor. Where it's like, oh, the easiest way to do this quest is just lead the dude up to the Rathalos. Rathalos will do the job. You know, it's not very appealing to me personally. Another thing that I wanted to mention about monsters, while we're on the topic of monsters and monster AI and all this stuff, when the monsters become enraged, now they will chase you down through the whole map. So, as I was saying earlier, you're going to have to use stealth tactics and stuff like that. Hide in bushes, use the ghillie mantle, because you're not going to be able to run away to a different zone. The monster's always going to be chasing you down, particularly when enraged. They're going to be, you know, very tough. So you'll have to either trap them and run, like, really far away, or you'll have to use these stealth mechanics or try to mount them or use some of the environmental traps that you have at your disposal. But it is interesting that monsters will actually not stop chasing you down, because it brings a lot of new elements into the hunt. Because like previously, you could always get away. You could basically like, oh, just run out of the area, whatever, rally, no problem. And now it's not going to be like that. It's going to feel a lot more alive, I think. And that is a very good thing. I just need to get my hands on it, basically. I need to get my hands on it. I need to get a feel for it, because I haven't gotten to play it yet, obviously. So with improved AI, and another thing that is very important is that beyond sight, monsters also have a sense of smell. So even if you hide in bushes and the monster happens to be enraged, and like you go into a bush while you're running away from the monster, guess what? The monster's not like, where did he go? You know, this is not like friggin' Metal Gear Solid or anything, you know what I'm saying? You're not going to be like run out of line of sight and people like, well, I guess those 10 dead guys back there, it must have been some kind of freak occurrence because nobody's here. I don't think that's going to happen in Monster Hunter World. And while we're on the topic of environmental traps, we've seen some in this gameplay footage as well, through the use of vines on the tree. That was also available in the previous video. When the monster hits the tree and the vines fall on top of them, it becomes kind of like stuck in there. We also seen the boulder drop, which you can use the Slinger to kind of pull a boulder on top of the monster, although that's probably going to require quite a bit of setup. And there's also something that they keep talking about, which is an electric frog, which you can find, and you can kick the frog, and the frog will do like an electrical discharge. And they also use that throughout this video, I believe, to paralyze the Andronoth in the middle of the hunt. Something else that, thank God, was finally shown on this video was the multiplayer footage. You will probably see people wielding a bow, people wielding the hammer, people wielding a lance, and at some point, I think someone swaps one of their weapons for the longsword. Those are the weapons that you will see in the multiplayer portions of this video. The bow is looking pretty cool. Oh yeah, they also did they use the bow gun? I don't remember if they used the bow gun or not. But the bow is looking pretty cool. It seems like there's some kind of a mechanic that after you fire off a couple of arrows, you're able to scrape one arrow off the floor and then charge it up, shoot some kind of explosive arrow at the monster. That is really cool, and again goes into that whole thing that I talked about, how weapons now have different move sets and stuff like that, because that is something that I personally haven't seen before in the bow. Another thing that you also have, one of the new abilities that was shown in one of the videos, was the heavy bowgun firing like a Gatling gun, like a rapid fire thing. Now, I'm not a bowgun user, but I've never seen a bowgun fire like that, just go like, and that was pretty cool as well. The multiplayer footage looked pretty good. It looked very much like you would expect from a typical Monster Hunter, which is a good thing that they've shown it, because like I said, a lot of people are confused. They think this is some kind of like single player only Monster Hunter, when in reality it is the next entry in the Monster Hunter franchise. This is very much like, a lot of people have been wondering, why is it called Worlds, why is it called this, that, and the other. This is very much like if it was Monster Hunter 5, essentially. This is the next major step in the franchise, and the reason it's called World is because they want it to be more appealing to the Western audience, and you know, people are going to see Monster Hunter 5 and they're going to be like, oh, that means I already missed out on 4 of them, when in reality we all know that that doesn't really matter that much. Another cool feature that Monster Hunter World has is you're going to be able to use fast travel throughout your hunts. Now, no, this is not a permanent Farcaster that you can use whenever you want, but essentially you can use these smaller wyverns that I've shown in my last video, I want to say, and I talked about how they're probably some kind of means of transportation. Well, now we know those are used to fast travel you back to the base camp. Now, however, you can't be in combat, engaged in combat with the monster in order to use this. So basically, you need to run away, hide, do whatever you want if you want to go back to base camp. And you guys are wondering, why would you want to go back to base camp that often? Because now you can change weapons mid-hunt at your base camp. You're not able to get additional consumables or anything like that, but you can change your weapons. You guys are like, wow, that seems really weird and very unlike Monster Hunter. Whatever happened to preparing for the hunt and all this other stuff? And it's like, yes, there is preparation for the hunt, but once again, you have to keep in mind that in this Monster Hunter, things are going to be different. There's going to be different parts of the hunt that can change at a moment's notice. Like, for instance, you're fighting a monster that is weak to fire, and then all of a sudden another monster shows up, like a Rathalos, who happens to not be weak to fire, and you might be like, oh crap, now I have to deal with this Rathalos as well. What am I going to do? You can go back to camp, change your weapon, get a weapon that is better suited to deal with Rathalos, get Rathalos, then get your monster, whatever. You get the point. I mean, you're not going to be able to change into different zones to take advantage of that particular loading zone mechanic. You're not going to be able to always predict exactly what is going to be on your hunt. And sure, you had the danger quests where occasionally a different monster could pop up. But again, in those cases, you were able to separate the two monsters using dung bombs or whatever, and they would run off into another area. You would never have to worry about them for a while. Whereas in here, it's not going to be as simple. You're not going to be able to be in Area 5 and a monster in Area 6 is not going to be troubling you. So it is important that as a player, you're able to adapt on the fly to these to the changing circumstances of the hunting grounds. And personally, the more I find out about this game and the more I see everything that is revealed, the more hyped I am. And I think a lot of Monster Hunter fans should be too. So even though I'm extremely sad that we're not going to be seeing Monster Hunter Double Cross anytime soon in the West, at the same time, I'm also very optimistic to the future of Monster Hunter in the West because we will be getting Monster Hunter World. I just wish we would also get Monster Hunter Double Cross. I mean, is that asking too much? I want all the Monster Hunters. Anyway, thank you guys very much for watching this video. Leave me all the comments, feedback, all that kinds of good stuff in the comment section below. Remember to subscribe if you're new. Leave it a like if you really enjoyed it, and I will see you guys in the next one.
おい、よかった。
いけた。あっぶねー。
だいぶ地味な。
地味フィニッシュ。
素材剥ぎ取りましょう。
はい。
はい。
ね。
このようにですね、ちゃんとやっぱモンスターハンターですので、クリアした後の剥ぎ取りっていうのもございまして、このような素材を使ってですね、武器防具っていうのを強化していただくっていうゲームサイクルのところは変わっておりません。で、もちろんこれクリア後にですね、また報酬ももらえますので、その画面だけじゃあ1回見てもらって、終了とさせてもらいましょうか。僕チタンのこんな感じで、はい。ちょっとイベントっぽいものが出てますけど、はい、じゃあここで終了になります。実機のございます。はい。